Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I can already tell, is going to be a controversial one, but yous have been asking for it. So, we've done the best players at every Scottish Premiership club this season. We've done the most underrated players at every Scottish Premiership club this season. And today, the final part of the trilogy, we're going to look at the most overrated players at every single Scottish Premiership club. I can already tell I'm going to lose half my audience. Three or four picks in, but I'm going to try my hardest and be as fair as possible. I'll also talk about the positives of these players because trust me, the players on this list are not bad. And let me get into the first disclaimer. The word overrated does not mean these players are useless, does not mean they're terrible, does not mean they can't kick a ball. What it means is I just think personally from their own fan bases, the way they're built in the media, whatever, it's just a little bit too much compared to how they actually play on the park. I think every player on this list, respectfully, is a good player. I just think, you know, maybe sometimes we push them a wee bit too far, we expect a bit too much from them. And I suppose when we get to the Rangers and Celtic players, that will have a massive divide in the comment section. So please, listen to that disclaimer before you type your abuse away. It's just a bit of fun. And what does my opinion matter? Look at me, I'm fat, I'm specky, and I'm sitting in front of a graffiti wall. Second disclaimer, very quickly, for the bottom half of the table, for those lesser teams, I don't feel necessarily they're overrated players. Some there is, some more obvious than others. It's just a bit hard to find players at those clubs who are, you know, seen as overrated because most players aren't exactly great. They've got players that are good for their systems, good for their respective teams. They're not world beaters. I've just had to pick somebody. So if you're a fan of teams like St Johnstone, teams like St Mirren, and you think I'm being harsh, you think I'm being unfair, trust me, it was a lot harder than you think to pick names for this video. Right, I'm going to go in the order of the current league table from 12th to 1st. We'll end off with Celtic and Rangers, but as the league table currently stands, that's the order we're going to go in. So that means we're starting with Livingston. Hey, this was very easy a couple of months ago. The answer would have been Lyndon Dykes. Lyndon Dykes, I think, was very overrated at Livingston. A good player, and he has shown that now at QPR, and he's done it for Scotland now as well, scoring goals on the international front. But I think there was definitely a bit too much from him in the terms of the media representation they gave, just because of how well he played against Christopher Jullien one time. So for me now, I've had to go with Craig Sibbald. I don't even think there's a particular reason. I think the way he carries himself on the field, the way he struts about, he thinks he's a bit better than what he is. I think that might be harsh in saying that Livingston was probably the second or third hardest one to pick for though, because once again it's a team of players who are, you know, they're not special by any means, they're bottom of the table for a reason, so it was hard. I've just gone with him because, you know, people look at him as their best player. He's in the team week in, week out, but he's no anything great. Hamilton Academical, I've gone for Davy Templeton. I know already, people are like, what, he's a great player, blah blah blah. He's alright. He's good, he's decent, he's one of Hamilton's best players. And it all comes down to if he can stay fit or not, how important he'll be this season for the club. I know Big Dave of Talk Scottish Football is a massive fan of him, he rates him very highly, and that was part of the decision-making process for David Templeton. A player who had so much promise and potential back in the day when he was at Hearts, he got his move to Rangers, and then sadly a big leg break took him out of the game. And ever since, he's not really been the same and not lived up to that potential. I think for Hamilton, he started this season really well, he has been one of their key players, but over the course of 38 games, we'll see that he's probably not as good as what some people and some pundits make out. He is a good player though, don't get me wrong, and keep that in the back of your mind about every single player here. They are good to an extent. I just don't think he's as good as what some people make out. St Mirren, oh god, here we go. Obika. I've gone with Big Jonathan Obika. A 30-year-old striker at St Mirren who scores every now and then. He's a good player when he turns up. A lot of the time he's useless as a knitted condom. Sometimes. Sometimes it looks as though he can't hit a barn door. And that is why I went for the most overrated. He stepped up in big moments. He relegated the Jam Tarts last year, God's sake. He can be good. But how many times a season do you get goals out of him? How many times a season does he turn up on the big games when you need him? Sometimes he just feels like a passenger. He is good, and I'm not denying that. When he does turn up, he can score goals. But there's so many games I've watched him going, he is a lump of wood. St Johnstone, I've gone for Stevie May. I don't need to say much about Stevie May, do I? Stevie May, a player who, you know, was built for so much. It was amazing his first spell at St Johnstone. Took the move down south, went to Sheffield Wednesday. His career has went since. He had a little bit of a renaissance when he moved back to St Johnstone, got a couple of goals, and we started getting cries of the old Stevie May is back. Nah, he's not. Trust me, he's not. And if he does score upwards of 10 goals this season, fair play to him, he'll prove me wrong, but nah. Stevie May, I think that one was quite straightforward for me. Motherwell, and I can imagine Goggs' reaction as I utter this name. Declan Gallagher is who I'm going for. Now, Declan Gallagher, I think, is a strong centre-half. He's had some amazing performances for Motherwell. We've seen him break into the Scotland team. But remember, there was a cry from Motherwell that he was Scotland's centre-half. Says everything about Scotland's centre-half when it's Declan Gallagher. That just shows the depth of our terrible centre-halves. You know, we've got no one. And the fact that some people refer to him, and Motherwell refer to him as Scotland's centre-half. My God almighty, help us. Jeez, oh. I think he is good. He's now the captain of Motherwell. And he can be solid at times, but there's a lot of times I've watched him, he's a big bomb scare as well. I think a lot of people build him up to be something he's not. He is a Motherwell quality player, I think. I could never imagine him getting a move to, you know, the likes of Celtic and Rangers. He is getting on a bit now. He was fantastic at Livingston and rightfully earned himself a move to Motherwell, but I feel like that's the kind of the peak for him. No disrespect, can see why people like him, and I can see him at times being a great player, but I feel like some people think he's this world beater and he's not. Kilmarnock, Eamon Brophy I've gone for here. Eamon Brophy's a player who at times, brilliant, wee nippy striker, gets in behind fast, can score goals. But there was generally points where I heard Kilmarnock fans, especially when Steve Clark was manager, I heard Kilmarnock fans and fans of other teams refer to him as one of the best strikers in the league, and people wanting him to start for Scotland. He's not that good. He's a good... I feel I've said this about everybody. He's not that good. Oh, he is good. No, but like, I just don't see it. That I think there was a point where he was on track to become such a good striker and probably make his way to being one of the best strikers in the league, and then he just dipped off big time, and then it came to the point where he was struggling to become a Kilmarnock starter. Steve Clark left, Alex Dyer came in, and they had the Italian guy in charge as well at that point, and you know, he's just not really been a consistent starter since, and all that for a player who was built to be Scotland's starting striker. Nonsense for me. I've had to go with Eamon Brophy there. There was even people talking about him perhaps getting a move to Celtic or Rangers at one point. Come on, calm down. Dundee United. Now I'm going to just cut to the chase, be brutally honest, and say I did not watch enough of Championship football last season to give an honest opinion of who is the most overrated player at Dundee United. By the end of the season, it could change. I mean, we could be saying it's Lawrence Shankland, depending on how he does in the Premiership. He picked up his first goal at the weekend, signs are looking positive, but if he doesn't come up to the top flight and do what we all expected, he will easily be the most overrated player at Dundee United. For me, I've went with Big Dave's opinion. Here it is on screen. Here's a conversation. Jamie Robson. Big Dave picked this one for yous. He's a Dunfermline man. He watched the Championship all last season. He knows. And there's his excuse for reasoning on screen. Ross County, I've gone for Billy Mackay, and it's a very similar story to what I said for Eamon Brophy. Now, I know when we played Ross County a couple of weeks ago, I was bigging up how important and how good Ross Stewart and Billy Mackay are for Ross County, and yes, I think they work as a very interesting dynamic up top for the Dingwall side, right? But Billy Mackay is a player who, especially last season, showed that after a few games, he was struggling. He wasn't really adapting to the top flight. And I still feel like some people look at him as a massive danger man when a lot of the times he's missing. 7 goals in the entirety of last season for Ross County, and 1 goal so far in the opening 6 or 7 for them this season isn't exactly the return you'd expect for a striker who is often bigged up to cause a lot of problems. You expect upwards of 10 goals at least. So for me, Billy Mackay is probably the most overrated, but he definitely off the ball creates a lot of problems. And once again, Ross County as a team, yes, are up there right now. A team that's full of players who are pretty much bang average. They're doing the job for Ross County, and that's what you expect. The exceptional player is Ross Stewart, there's no doubt about that. Otherwise, they're not a team full of players you can really criticise for the level they're at. So, Billy Mackay, I feel like it might be harsh, but for me it was the most obvious of the group. Aberdeen, and I've gone for, now, I could have went for Scott McKenna, but it looks as though he's off to Nottingham Forest, so I've had to change my pick last minute, and I've gone for Sam Cosgrove. So Sam Cosgrove, yes, knows how to score goals. Do you remember that period of the season last year? It was on a drought and he was like scoring penalties and that was it. And yet he's getting bigged up to be like, what, a £3-4 million striker. I was shocked when they knocked down the bid they got from this year. But he's out injured, of course. We won't see him for a while, so it's going to be hard to tell if he is going to keep up any sort of goal-scoring form. We don't know when he'll be back in the team. So, Cosgrove, maybe it's controversial or not, but the way that Aberdeen fans made him out to be last year, I just don't see it. I think he's decent, but not quite what people make out. Hibs was solid. To pick somebody who I feel is overrated. You've got a team of really good players at Hibs. For Jack Ross has got them playing phenomenal football, and they're a solid side. For me, I'm going to go with Ryan Porteous, and yes, after yesterday, I adore Ryan Porteous. Brilliant, what a guy. he's Scotland's best young centre-half, Hibs are claiming? Probably not. I think before yesterday I have heard so many complaints from Hibs fans about, you know, Ryan Porteous being this, that, the next thing, not good enough and this, and you know what, he's young, he's got a lot of development to do. I think he will turn into a good player, but after the reaction of yesterday, you'd think he's about to sign for Celtic or Rangers. He's the pick I'm going with. There was a couple of other shouts in there. You could look at the likes of Doidge. Some people think he's a plank of wood. He knows how to score goals though. Scott Allen is who I picked for best player. Perhaps I was overrating him, perhaps other people overrate him. But for this, I'm going to go for Ryan Porteous. Celtic, I am going for Christopher Ajer. Yes. Me, the man who's bigged up Christopher Ajer since the creation of my channel, the man who loves Christopher Ajer, is saying now he's the most overrated player at the club, and you could say he is. People are expecting us to get 20-25 million pounds for him. Look, we only got 20 odd million for Moussa Dembele. What was it, 22 million pounds for Moussa Dembele? We're expecting more than that for Christopher Ajer? No chance. Some fans do understand the level we're at with Ajer and how much money we should get, but some people think he's this, you know, walk into the top floor of the Premier League centre half, and he's not. He's far from it. He's far too dodgy at times. I think he looks lazy at times. The confidence with the ball at his feet, moving forward, looks good, but as soon as a bit of pressure on him, sometimes you wonder. You know, sometimes you do question it. Now, it could be leaving Celtic. It looks as though that might be a really realistic possibility over the next couple of weeks before the end of the transfer window. If we get £14 million from him, fair enough. A lot of people wouldn't say he's worth £14 million though in terms of the normal Scottish transfer market numbers. So, is he the most overrated player at Celtic? He's definitely up there with a cry, and for this video I'm going to go for him. Let me just reiterate though, for my Celtic fans watching, I do like Ajer, I rate Ajer, I don't overrate him though. And finally, to end off the video with Rangers, I'm going for Connor Goldson. For me, I do not see anything special from him, and at times I see tweets, I see Facebook posts, I see YouTube videos, I see all different things about him being the best thing from sliced bread. Then the next week he's getting told to get out the team by the same people. It's madness. He's so up and down with consistency at Rangers. Another centre-half, of course, but someone Steven Gerrard has invested a lot of faith in. I think it was one of his first signings when he moved to the club, so obviously Gerrard sees something in him. Personally, I don't see it. I think that goes a long way for saying that the quality of Rangers centre-halves. And I know Rangers fans are like, what are you saying, what are you talking about? Look, realistically, Rangers can do better, and Rangers fans will know that, and I'm not saying Celtic's is perfect, you know, ours is far from it as well. There just is a severe lack of quality within central defenders in the country of Scotland, and that reflects in the national team too. But Connor Goldson, I think, does get it stinking rightfully at times, but at times people go on about him as if he's, you know, Bobby Moore. Nah, just nah. And that does it. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. I'm not going to say much, because I already know people have clicked off the video in hatred. So aye, thanks very much. Bye.